channel and welcome to my latest video. 2017 is full of resolutions for me. So this year I am going to run my channel properly. I'm going to upload regular videos. I have a bunch already underway in the works. Some of them I've already started shooting and I will get them up. My aim is to upload 2 videos a week. I just moved to Paris and I don't have an apartment yet, and I really downsized in order to A, be able to afford to come here. I sold heaps of stuff, and B, I bought the cheapest ticket available, which meant I could take 1 suitcase. So at the moment I'm filming just on my my MacBook or on my iPhone, and as I've said previously in other videos, I am vegan, and even if I wasn't vegan, I just could never ever justify cruelty to animals for makeup and hair products, and I cannot find cruelty-free hair products in France. They have Sephora here, but they don't have any of the American vegan brands or the Australian vegan brands that they stock in Sephora back home in Melbourne or in LA and New York that I found. But when I move into my apartment, I will order my favorite products online. When they arrive, I will make you hair tutorials, I promise. But in the meantime, I'm gonna make some other ones for you that have been requested. This one today is going to be how to get a vintage haircut from your hairdresser. This is a really good topic because it makes a really big difference to your vintage styles if you have the right haircut. So, I think you should ask yourself a couple of questions before you get a vintage haircut, and here is why. Vintage haircuts were designed in eras when women used to go to the hairdresser once a week and they would get their hair cut in a particular way, and then their hairdresser would style their hair and they would keep that hairstyle for the whole week. We don't do that anymore. So that means if you're going to get a vintage cut, you're going to have to style your hair every day or every 2 days at the most, because vintage haircuts don't look good as wash and dry haircuts. If you're the sort of person that most of the time just lets their hair dry naturally, do not get a vintage haircut. I can't stress that enough. You will hate your haircut. But if you're going to style your hair every day, or you're at least on your lazy days going to blow dry it straight or use a straightener, you can get away with getting a vintage haircut. The next question is, do you know how to style your hair properly? I would recommend practicing doing these hairstyles before you get a really true vintage haircut. If you're going to do the midi cut or you're going to get a Marilyn cut, they'll cut it like that, and then if you don't know how to do those styles properly, your hair won't look good. So I would actually recommend getting your normal haircut or getting kind of a contemporary version of your haircut and practicing with that until you feel really confident with the basics of how to do pin curling or hot setting and brush outs, etc. And then once you're really confident with it, then go and get a vintage haircut, because as I say, it's just one of those things where if your hair isn't set properly, a vintage cut really doesn't look good. All of that said, if you're willing to jump in the deep end and get your haircut in a true authentic style, here is how to do it and what to say to your hairdresser. First of all, find a hairdresser, do your research, look at reviews, look at their website, see if they do retro do's. If they know how to do pin curling and they know how to do a vintage style for like weddings and things, they're probably going to be capable of cutting your hair in a retro style. I've had a lot of hairdressers over the years because I've been getting vintage cuts since I was about 14 years old. I've had a lot of them over years tell me that they could do it. Then they tell me, oh, I'm just going to do shearing. When they get those kind of weird razory scissors and they shear your hair and give it at different angles to like give it body and give you lots of layers. It's so hard to style your hair vintage like that, because when you pull the hair out to pin curl it, all the hair is different length and you can't get chunks of your hair. It all just falls everywhere. It is so annoying. So don't let them cheat vintage for you. The other place that you can go, actually, I just thought of this, but the other place that you can go is if you see little old ladies with a Marilyn style haircut, because little old ladies, lots of them, still get Marilyn haircuts, go to their hairdresser, because those hairdressers not only cut but set their hair to look like that. So they know what they're doing. Or if you're from Melbourne, go and see Casey from Metropolitan Hair Co in St Kilda, just off of Fitzroy Street. It's at the St Kilda stop. She is awesome. She knows how to do vintage do's. Her best friend is totally into the retro style, and so she's had to do her best friend's hair for like weddings and shoots and stuff. So she's done all sorts of vintage cuts and vintage styles. So I would highly recommend Casey. Third tip that I'm going to give you is don't just get any haircut. So try and take inspiration from people that have a similar kind of look to you. For example, I have dark features, I have kind of a long face, I have dark hair, and if you have dark hair, it tends to be thinner and slipperier, making it more difficult to get volume. So if I was trying to go for like a Jane Mansfield or a Marilyn look, I'm not going to get the same kind of body and lift that they got, because they had bottle blonde bleach hair, which makes it a lot drier. And when you have dyed hair in particular, mine is, this is my natural color, I don't dye my hair, it actually makes it a lot harder to keep your T's in. So I'm going to struggle to achieve those styles. I can, but within like 2 or 3 hours, the style starts to flop. Whereas you'll find if you have bottle blonde hair, your style will stay in probably all day. Some girls manage to keep it in for like 3 days. So that's going to make a big difference. So for me, as a brunette, I take my inspiration not just with my hair, but also with my makeup and what clothing and stuff I tend to wear, from Elizabeth Taylor, from Hedy Lamarr, from Ava Gardner, who was like, she has been my idol forever, and from Vivian Leigh, who's also been an idol of mine since I was a little girl. After that, it's up to finding your cutting pattern or the inspiration or the ideas that you want to take to your hairdresser to ask them to give you your vintage cut. If you're going to go for a midi, so a midi is like Ava Gardner, Vivian Leigh, Ingrid Bergman, sort of this kind of length hair with your 40s sort of shorter S-wave here and a real curve to the hair that kind of does a barrel under but is longer at the back and short at the front, that's your midi cut. You can get those diagrams off of the internet. Literally just type midi haircut diagram into Google, go to the images section, and there's heaps of diagrams. Now there's the short, the traditional midi, which is the mid-length, which is about my length, and then there's the long midi if you want a haircut that's a little bit more like, say, like Ava Gardner when she was younger. Later on she got more of like an Elizabeth Taylor kind of haircut, but when she was young she had like the long midi. You can extend the lengths again if you want to get more of a Rita Hayworth length. She still had a midi, it's just a much longer version. So tell your hairdresser, I want this haircut, but I want all of the lengths quite a lot longer. So maybe like instead of doing, I think it's 8 and 10 inches, you might want to do 12 inches and 14. You'll see on the patterns what I mean by that, and I will leave links in the description bar to some really good diagrams in case you struggle to find them just by doing a Google search. So that's the midi. If you want, say, more like a shorter 50s haircut, like the later photos of Ava Gardner, like Elizabeth Taylor, like Marilyn Monroe, I've had those cut several times. They're a little bit trickier because you have to really know what you're talking about, but the best thing to do is find a hairdresser who knows about vintage styles and then take a picture in. Try and take pictures from different angles. So I've taken in pictures of Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn because I was kind of getting a haircut that was a cross between the two. I took pictures that were front on, I took pictures of them from the side, from each side, and I took pictures of them that had been taken so you could see the back of the hair and what the length was like. So a few things to talk about too with your hairdresser that will give you a vintage look, particularly if it's the first time you're going and they're a little bit unconfident and you're a little bit unconfident, or you just want to start out with something and you're a little bit scared about getting a proper vintage cut like the midi. Then go to your hairdresser and ask for layers. You need layers for a vintage cut because that's how you get your curl. If you can, ask them to do horizontal layers instead of vertical layers because that will help you pull sections of your hair out and not have it kind of rain down as you're trying to pin curl it. Ask them to do a U-cut. What that means is at the back your hair is shorter at your shoulders, and then if you look at the back of you, right, it's going to go in a U shape like this, quite deep. If you watch any old movies, you'll see that the women's hair, the curl kind of comes up and over their shoulder like this, the bottom of their hair. It's not about the curling pattern, it is about the cut. Your hair is actually literally cut in quite a deep U shape. So my hair used to come down, the length of it when it was straight and not curled, would come down just below the red line at the back of my jumper, and the fronts actually sat up about level with the neckline of my top up here. So it's a big scoop. So if you get a scoop cut, that is going to help you get the shape, even if you don't end up with a full midi cut. If you ask them to cut this section of your hair here, so your bangs if you're in America, or your fringe, or just like the top section of your head in front of the crown, so the crown is back here, you want the front section of your hair. If you can get all of that cut straight up like this at the same length, so that it comes a little bit longer, so maybe like to your pupil length, past your eyebrows, when you do your S-wave, it's going to sit like this and across, because once you pull the hair across, obviously these layers are going to end up at different lengths, and you'll get the S-wave falling down the side of your face, and then you'll have your curl coming down and over your shoulder, so you'll get a nice kind of gradation of curl here. Then you'll have a long length on this side if you part it on the side, and you'll be able to sweep the hair back which is very 40s, and then you'll have the curls happening down here because of your U-cut, which will bring these curls up a bit higher, and you'll kind of get that 40s thing where you have a lot of curl here and then some curl here. So it's all about which parts of your hair are cut at what lengths. In terms of recommendations for instructions or for finding out what the lingo is, get yourself some vintage haircutting book or vintage styling books. I've got some really great ones that are available as ebooks from Glamour Days. I would highly recommend them. They've got 1920s through to 1960s, and they're all individual ebooks. And not only do they have hair tips, hair cutting diagrams, pin curling diagrams, which is which direction to pin your pin curls in order to get a certain hairstyle, which is amazing. It's very time consuming, but it looks amazing. I'll put the link for that in the description box below as well. There's heaps of like amazing blogs and stuff out there. Just Google, if you Google like MIDI cut or vintage hair cutting diagram, pin curl setting pattern, anything like that, you'll find blogs that are all about vintage hairstyling. And to be honest, most of them are pretty good. Like if people know that lingo, they know what they're talking about. They probably wrote a good blog and probably have good pictures. And lastly, do your research. Know what you're talking about, because often you can go to the hairdresser and they will talk you into something different because they sound like they know what they're talking about. Vintage styles, even though the retro look is very popular now, particularly in Australia, a lot of hairdressers still don't know a lot about it these days. They don't get trained with this stuff so much in school, or if they did, they don't really use it in their working life, and so they tend to forget a bit about it. So like, be really confident, know your lingo, talk about pin curling, talk about pin curl clips, talk about S-waves, talk about finger waves, talk about the fact that you want a MIDI cut or a box cut or a shingle cut. Do your research, know what you're talking about, sound confident, and stick to your guns. That's the best recommendation I can make, because that's how you walk away with a good haircut. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys got some useful hints out of this. If you have any other questions, put them in the comments section below, and good luck. I hope you end up with a great haircut, and I will be uploading more vintage styles as soon as I can order some stuff from it online, but there will be a vintage makeup video coming up soon, and I'll be posting some other like vlogs and like lifestyle videos as well. Alright, so thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to hit the like button if you like this video. Thanks guys, bye!